Welcome back to Momentous Struggle, a Star Wars Shatterpoint podcast. On this week's episode, Aubrey and I are going to talk about alternate events. Something that's, us being the filthy casuals that we are and not the competitive tryhards like some other people down the radio dial, we should say. We're not quite as like the competitive tryhards like some others, but we do like to sit there and display this game. So we're looking at the alternate formats and kind of where they are, the evolution of them, I guess, since the game has started. So we'll go ahead and jump on into it. Aubrey, I just talked to you like 12 hours ago because we decided to join the boys over at Red Mando's to have an interesting discussion with them. So I'm excited to see that episode or hear that episode when it comes out, because I'm not sure how that went, but I think it went okay. But yeah, so how are you doing since the last time I talked to you less than 12 hours ago?
It's been 83 minutes, Todd. So yeah, no, that was so much fun. I hope the episode turns out the way that it sounded like it did, because we were having some good back and forth. I mean, we were running into I remember the early days of Rogue Support when all of a sudden they reboot and it was four of them and they had to figure out how to interact with each other, and now they've got it singing over there. Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have to do like another run with the Red Bandos, and maybe we'll get there too. Because there was definitely a couple times where we were all trying to say the same thing at the same time, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to wait. But
Right.
it was a fun topic. We talked about TOing and pain points and ways to work on it. So, but you gotta go listen to them. It was we talked for like 2 hours. It was like, that's not even their whole episode, and I'm like, this
Right.
is so long.
Yeah, they brought us down. They took us down their path of long episodes for sure, which was hilarious because it's just like they're like, we're going to make this a long episode whether you like it or not. Momentous struggle. So yeah,
Yeah,
we were the
no, I
momentous Mandos for a day.
yeah, or as I like to call us, the Pandamandos. Pandemonium. Yeah. Okay, just making sure somebody's paying attention.
Pandemonium. Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, no, that was a fun time. I'm excited to hear that episode when it comes out. But other than that, I mean, what else have you been up to? Have you been doing any Shatterpoint stuff? I'm assuming you haven't, but how have you
Well,
been up to?
no, not game wise, but I mean, I have still been going down the rabbit hole of 3D printing and figuring things out. I'm actually happy. So, it's funny, actually, two different members of our Discord reached out to me to remind me about a file set I had bought way back when we first started playing. And it's just funny that they both independently sent me the same set, but I had forgotten about it. Remember that set I had that had like the containers, like you could put all of your cards and stuff
Yeah.
inside the tower? Hey Todd, I have that set too, and it actually works really well with both Fractured City and with the official terrain. If you wanted to mix and match things, like the person who designed that did a really good job. So I'm probably going to print out a few more of those and see how they look on the table again, because I had forgotten I had those, because they were like part of my original set that I need to like fix the paint job on, or I don't
Well, and
know,
I
maybe I'll
broke
throw
one of
them at
them too.
you.
I think like one night at the store, I started playing around with something
Oh
and like dropped it or something. So
yeah,
maybe you just had
yeah.
trauma from me destroying your toys.
I just think it's funny. I completely forgot about that, because they sell a version that doesn't have the like tools and stuff. So like, if you aren't interested in that, it's, for the record, it's the same set basically. If you don't, it's just one has the tool boxes that go inside and one doesn't. But anyway, look at the Discord if you know what I'm talking about. So I looked at that. Whoa.
All right,
Excuse me
Aubrey's
while
trying
I'm
to die over
dying.
there while he's while he's waking up this morning. So yeah, and that was
Oh.
just sidebar since you're coughing. That was the funny thing. Talking to the Red Mandos before you actually jumped onto the podcast to record with them yesterday was that we were recording with them at night our time compared to like how we record in the mornings, and they were very excited that they were getting Aubrey at 100%, where I always get Aubrey at like 50% because he just woke up.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, now that I'm not dying, I'm actually really happy. In fact, I have him sitting right here. But I had stripped the paint off of my mall because
Mhm.
well, with the light behind my head, you can't really see the details that much. But um, I had stripped the paint off my mall, but then I promptly, like, a few months went by and I didn't get around to playing or working on him again. And so last night I worked on mall while watching Severance with the oldest. That show's trippy. Oh boy, we'll see how
Yeah,
that
it
goes.
is.
Um, and this is my first attempt. Like, you can't really see on the camera. I'll have to show you later, to try and do edge highlighting, like on like the cloth and stuff. It it's a little wider than I intended it to be. It looks more like his cloth has like a gray coloration through it instead of it being like a true edge highlight like I intended. But hey, I'm reaching the point where I'm trying to challenge myself to do stuff that I'm not quite comfortable with yet. Like, I still need to go back to dry brushing. I After a few disastrous attempts with dry brushing, I haven't been doing it, but I can tell it's like, uh, it's important. I
I
don't
have
know.
a feeling you're dry
Anyway.
brushing. I have a feeling you're dry brushing. Probably the biggest issue with that is that you're probably not getting enough paint off of the brush, and you're because you're rushing to sit there and start the dry brush instead of getting all of the paint off. Just knowing you and your ADHD ways of going about things, that's probably what your issue is that you probably need to spend like a little bit more time getting the paint off the brush. Just a thought. That's just my not even knowing the scenario at all.
I'll I'll set a timer. Yeah, no. I'm really happy overall, even though like my edge highlights look too like wide, like they're too big for what they're supposed to be. Like, the color I wanted turned out pretty good, and then like I got some help from the oldest too with like getting the color of Maul's like face and chest, like the red, right? Because the last time I did Maul, he was like bright red, like angry mad red, and I was like, no, I want him to look like he's actually Maul. So like, just hobby stuff. Like, I felt good because this is the first time I kind of, and admittedly it's a model I already worked on once before, but it's the first time I sat down and just kind of looked at a reference picture and then went at it. Usually I'm having to like look up a video or start with someone else's idea and then figure out what I'm gonna do. So I don't know. I felt good about that.
Well, they
What
say
about you?
imitation is the best form of flattery, so I mean, I'm sure that that's fine.
Fair, fair. So what about you? What have you been doing with Shatterpoint?
I did not get out this week. It's been a crazy week just with like
Mm.
kids and stuff like that. But I've
You
been
sounded extra busy.
yeah, it's been a crazy week with just kid stuff. So I wasn't able to get out this week to do the normal Wednesday meetup that I try to do every Wednesday. But I did start spending. I started to get some more time in, of course, painting terrain, but I wanted to start focusing on my pile of unbuilt, unpainted models that I just have kind of growing and growing because it's like, man, it's gonna be fun to play this, and then I don't play it and I don't even get it out of the plastic wrap. So I finished up the Mando box finally, and then I went on to the Bounty Hunters box, and so finished excuse me, finished up Mando, and then I'm worked on Bosk this week. So built him up and painted him, and I was really excited with like how kind of just like working on the scales and finding that finding ways to um, kind of go from like a dark green to like a yellowish green, and because I was like, kind of mixing paints and kind of just doing a little bit of like blending and bringing out some of the I guess like not really stippling, but kind of like just getting the different scales, different shades of this green or greenish yellow. So that was kind of fun, just kind of playing around with what I was doing with him. I'm actually kind of excited to once I get done with the bounty hunter box, probably go over to the Princess Leia box so I can build Han and Chewie because I want to sit there and really like go into doing the fur on Chewie because I think that's one of those challenging things is painting fur, and I'm really looking forward to kind of jumping into like trying to get him painted and looking pretty cool.
Well, I remember the bear, like it was a
Ursa
bear,
Major,
right?
yeah, Ursa Major from
Yeah, yeah.
MCP.
From from MCP. Like I thought you did an amazing, like again, inexperience. Like I thought you did an amazing job, and then they were like giving you feedback from the competition, and I was like, I don't even understand what they're telling you, Todd. But okay, like it looks good to be. So it'll be fun to to tackle that some because you don't have Ewoks, right? So you
No.
haven't done. Yeah, so that'll be fun to see. I on the other hand am sitting here going I I have at least assembled almost all of the minis that I own now because I kind of felt bad because I literally pulled Agent Callus out of the Thrawn box and then threw the ISB agents and Thrawn into a corner. Like it was so bad. And
That
now
is very
now
rebels of you. I just have to say that. That is very rebels of you.
yeah, and so now I've been listening to the Thrawn audiobooks. And I know I've mentioned them like over the past months, and I'm like actually feeling an itch to play like some Vader Thrawn for like the first time, and I'm like, oh, I've been listening to these books too long. This is I went
I
back
think you
and
just
I
made Sarah
actually
Cruel very excited right there. I think Sarah Cruel's just like, Aubrey, yes.
because well, like here's the thing, Thrawn is a compelling villain. Like that's what's great about Star Wars is yeah, you can have the mustachioed oh ho, 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 I'm going to defeat you, and then you can have Darth Vader, who turns out that he has like this super intriguing tragic backstory involving sand, and you're just you're just intrigued by the story, and Thrawn's story is very interesting. I've always appreciated the fact that in Legends they kind of make the point that like the Empire, like the people of the Empire, not the Empire itself, but like the people of the Empire were not always evil. Like they had a dictator who was forcing them to do a lot of this stuff against their will, like we see in Rogue One. Like Jyn
Right.
Erso's dad didn't want to build the Death Star, and
Mm.
like that kind of stuff. And so it's always interesting to me to think like alternate reality. What if like Thrawn had been in charge of the Empire instead? Would it really have been evil? Like, I mean, it probably wouldn't even be a dictatorship at that point. But yeah, just thought process. So I don't know. I'm feeling a Thrawn itch. Plus, you have to know your enemy. You must understand their ways. Look at their art in order to defeat them, as the plucky
You're
rat once
really
said.
embracing this whole Thrawn thing. I like it. I like how you're just like taking the whole persona of Thrawn and just embracing all of it. So that's great.
Well, I also feel like I should be making Dizzard happy because I just repainted Maul so that I could play Maul again. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be putting Thrawn on the table. Like I mean I know I haven't heard him talk about Thrawn recently because he's tried other stuff, but I'm like channeling Sarah Cruel and Dizzard. I mean I even got the Come to the Dark Side shirt on because I knew I was gonna be talking about this.
That is fantastic. Yeah, no, I mean it's funny. Like you keep on. I just think I just listened to the last week's episode of Rogue Support, and there's this talking about going back to Mulligan. It's just it's like a drug, man. Like it's like you can't let him go. You keep on coming back to that, even though you might be on the road to recovery, and then all of a sudden it's like you just get that itch again. He's kind of like that meme of Dave Chappelle, like scratching himself. I got to get some more of that Lord Maul over here. You know.
Hey, that force pull expose ability of his, like,
Yep.
that they like, and sinister cunning. I'm sorry, Maul is just fun to play with. Like, forget all of the considerations of lore aside. Even though Maul's a great character anyway, but like, no, he's fun. I actually hope, I really really hope that if we get a Cal Kestis, he has like a Jedi version, like of a force pull, because we don't see the Jedi do that often. But you do that in the Force Awakens games. Wow, that's not the thing. The the
That's not
Fallen
Force
Order,
Awakens games, man.
Force Awakens, Fallen Order, and Jedi Survivor in the Jedi games. Okay, we got there.
Yes.
You do that all the time. Like you'll pull droids to like get to uh slice them. Man, I was trying to think of the Star Wars term to
Hmm.
like slice the droids and take them over and stuff. So I'm hoping I want a light side version. Maybe he doesn't do the expose. Maybe he just has the pull. But uh, yeah, just stuff I'm thinking about.
I see that. I see that. All right. Well, no, that's awesome. I guess so. Yeah, the biggest thing, I guess, that's not really a great segue, but forget it. We'll just jump into it. We're gonna go and talk about this week. Like I said, some of the past events and kind of like alternate events to Shatterpoint. Um, and I think the place that we're going to start with is kind of looking at like frenemies and kind of how we've decided to move past frenemies, just as like our experiences with that, simply because characters like Lando, characters like Callus kind of exist where they kind of break the core idea of frenemies. And so like we've decided kind of to move past that in a way.
Oh, well, so just to make sure everybody's on the same page in case you haven't actually played an event like this. So the way frenemies work, or like Adepticon, I think is calling it adversaries to allies this year. Or so essentially, you run two squads, but they cannot share tags, and you usually pick out like four or five of the major faction tags, and you say, okay, pick from this list. So like say Rebel Alliance. One squad can be all Rebel Alliance, but then they cannot share a tag with anyone on your other squad. And notably because of all the new rules, it's after deployment. So like again, if you run somebody like Princess Leia who gives everyone a tag, well, we check after you give everyone after deployment. So no, you can't break the rules by doing something like that and be like, haha, gotcha. but but that statement is kind of the problem with frenemies. I love you all, dear listeners, and I love me some competitive games. But nerds, stop trying to break every game format just to prove how clever you are. It hurts me too much. I can't keep up with you. We had to change the rules document like four times because you all kept finding ways to break it.
Yeah. I mean, and frenemies, like for what it's worth, like at its core is a fun, can be a fun event, but it just became too much of a headache to sit there and deal with, or we're just like, oh, forget it, we're done with this. It's like I get that people are trying to get that competitive edge in any way that they can, but man, it was just a little too much for us.
Yeah, yeah. So like the idea on its surface, not a problem and can be done fun. And if you notice, if you look at how Adepticon wrote it, they wrote their document very similar to ours. Or I mean, they probably had theirs done in advance. Like I'm not like saying they copied ours. Like they probably have been sitting on that document for forever. Uh, but it it was just, it seemed like the most obvious thing to do because the one thing that's cool about Shatterpoint is that you do not have to do, and I know like I'm not trying to pick on MCP, but like MCP, correct me if I'm wrong, but you at least have to have like over 50% of your affiliation like to use a leader, right? Or how does
So, yeah, so basically every unit has affiliations that they are assigned. So like for example, like you can have people that are, say, a force and and that are also Avengers or something along those lines, and different, so they're just affiliated with different teams. And then certain characters have like leadership abilities where if you want to use that leadership ability, at over 50% of your units have to share that affiliation of that leader. So for example, like if you're using Captain America and you're running 5 characters, 3 of your characters have to be Avengers, or have the Avengers tag. So it comes into play like that, where it's like, because there's a specific added ability that you can utilize throughout the game. So which is kind of very different from MCP, or from Shatterpoint.
Yeah, okay, so that's not what I was thinking. I thought it was just a rule your team. So you could just run good stuff and just not have a leader ability.
Correct. Yeah, you can just run all,
Oh.
like these are my 10 favorite characters. I want to play all of them, and I'm just not going to utilize any type of a leadership ability. You're putting yourself behind a little bit because those abilities are very powerful in most cases. So like by not having one of those powerful abilities, in addition, you're kind of putting yourself at a slight disadvantage. But you don't have to do that. You can play with just good stuff at any given time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so maybe my analogy wasn't quite as strong as I thought, but I just meant like so. Okay, AMG. Apparently, you've already cracked the code. We just want to play with all of our fun toys, and we don't want you to stop us. I'm
Hmm.
too used to in a lot of games where like if you want to go down a certain rabbit hole with a faction or a certain team or a certain strategy, well then you are shoehorned into this is your lane. These are the cards you're gonna run, or these are the units you're gonna run. Like if this is what you want to do, this is your path. And I like that we don't have that restriction, and I feel like frenemies really embodies that concept of, hey, if you want Luke and Vader to have a daddy takes his son to work and blows up the Death Star day, that's you can do that. And I really like the whole what if concept. Like it's very much a Marvel thing. They've been doing that comic for decades. But like what if scenarios are fun, and it felt like frenemies was supposed to embody that. But y'all keep breaking my toys, so I'm not playing with you anymore.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, and I think that's kind of like where we're at with it. I mean, maybe like Adepticon might be able to do it better than we can, and I would assume that they can. They've been doing this for a lot longer than you and I have for sure. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I
we'll,
mean, there's
we'll
and
see. Hey, we'll be there. We'll see how it goes.
yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely we'll be there to sit there and kind of give a give our opinions of like what kind of is happening in real time and everything along those lines. So yeah, we'll be able to do that. And we're also I think looking at we did the 2-person team event like they did at Adepticon. I think they're doing the 2-person team event again this year at Adepticon. But we're looking at kind of expanding that and moving past it, going, you like to call it the team trios like we called it in Magic, where you would have the player events. um and you'd have each person would have their own table, so to speak. Like in MCP, there's basically 3 separate tables set side by side, and you play against your opponent that actually has 3 different teams as well playing. So I think we're looking at leaning at going away from that 2v2 on one board to the 3v3 on 3 separate boards, and kind of making that change overall when going forward.
Yeah, this is one of those things where team events are just fun, right? Like it's always more fun to be on a team, even in these games that are very much that feel very 1v1. Although I still stand by the fact I think Shatterpoint works very well as a multiplayer experience. Uh, with like the two-headed giant as we call it, or the 2v2. I think both are fun, but I do think for the people who uh just cannot let go of their competitive itch even in a casual game, uh having the team trios, I'm just gonna keep calling it team trios, that's what makes sense in my head. Y'all can name it whatever you want later. um the team trios feels less like you're having to navigate constantly with another person, and you can focus more on your game. So I do understand the appeal of that. But at the same time, you're still on a team. So I mean, you still get to, you get to talk to your teammate, and you get to have that engagement. I feel like it's the best way to give everybody the competitive itch and the team itch without leaning all the way in with the two-headed giant format.
Yeah, I mean, and like it'd be interesting to see kind of like how to expand upon the team trio type of format, like especially like grabbing it from like the MCP side. The MCP side, you can't have any units that are carrying over from one team to the next, and it'd be interesting to see how that kind of
Hmm.
works in the Shatterpoint side, especially if you look at doing like maybe Premiere, and like if you're doing a team event that's Premiere, that's also that's also can't escape your destiny. So like you're having to sit there and add that entire piece of it. It'd be interesting to see kind of like where we go from that.
I mean, I think we would have to iterate on it. I think like if we were to do the team trios next year, it should probably just be a standard showdown format with the modified like team rules added on, and then see how that goes. And if that goes well and has enough interest, then we try and run it again as a premier showdown, because that's a lot of models to travel with. Like if you're bringing your competitive list, and then like say like you're on a, like, because I assume you're, because if we do that restricted format where and I can't remember the Magic version of the name, but where you can't share you can't share units. They're gonna have to bring extra minis. Like there's probably gonna be some interesting teams we see come out of that sort of restrictive list building, and I like that idea.
Mhm.
That's actually what we want. Is we're trying to challenge you without you breaking us in response. Okay, it's supposed to be challenging, not brain breaking. It's supposed to be
No,
fun, Todd.
yeah, no, and I get that. I mean, so it's interesting, basically, kind of like how it's called unified constructed. That's what it was in Magic.
Thank you. Oh, that was driving me crazy. I knew I could have Googled it, but I was just like, whatever. I'm moving on with my life. Unified
Yeah.
constructed, yeah. Because in Magic, like just very quickly, normally in a deck you can only have up to 4 copies of the same card in it, and so in Unified constructed, it then became even if you were playing the same format with the same cards legal, you could only have 4 copies spread amongst your 3 teammates, and so it forced you to adopt different strategies because you didn't want to dilute your strategy by playing fewer than 4 copies and then giving 2 copies, say, to one of your teammates. Like, no, so you would have to a lot of times you would have like an aggro player, a mid-range player, a control player. I mean, depending on the format, there's too many variables, but all other things being equal, each of you would adopt a different strategy to try and avoid that problem.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think what we were like looking at is making it like a unified type of an event where you can't share models between from one person to the next. So yeah, I think there's kind of like and the nice thing is like before we have to settle on say this like the event for LVO, we do also have a team event coming up locally at that will be running at Smite Club Open. Like for the people that don't make the top 8 of the GT, we're going to be running the Smite Club Open um, team event as well. And then we might be able to sit there and kind of iterate on that as far as how start with the first iteration of what we're looking at for the team event and then kind of expanding upon that as we go, because team events like there is a calling for that. I know like on the MCP side there's large, you have the world team championships and you have all sorts of great events that involve playing a team format, and I think I can see the crossover from that happening in the Shatterpoint world very easily.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I shouldn't say, yeah, it's not like we can't just Todd and I can't just ask, Imperial Outpost or Gamers Guild or one of the other local shops like, "Hey, can we run an event one weekend? We want to test this out and see how much interest there's in." Like we got pretty good working relationships with the stores around here. You especially, Todd. I mean, come on. Like we could always do some testing, kick the tires over the next year. This is also spoilers, dear listeners. We're bringing this up because we wouldn't mind some feedback from you, like based on what we've been talking about already. Like, what do you think would be interesting? But we're gonna keep going. We got more
Yeah,
we got more to throw
yeah,
at you.
there's yeah, definitely. I mean, so one of the things that we talked about with like that we did at LVO was did the 2v2 team event that also had like a second Shatterpoint card with like kind of a restriction on how you can use your second Shatterpoint card. Like so if player A used the Shatterpoint card on their squad, then player B would have to use a second Shatterpoint on their squad. And that seemed to be pretty, there seemed to be some pretty good response to that by the community, just adding that extra rule in, and giving them a little bit more freedom to sit there and play like another unit and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know if that's like something that we want to kind of focus on and find a way to have a double Shatterpoint card in other formats or something along those lines. I don't think you can really do that in like I don't know, I don't think you can do that in a normal constructed. I don't know.
No, you could so because we had oh, and by the way, we didn't come up with this idea either. This was oh, I'm always forgetting
Mr.
his name
Mayhem,
over.
Richard from
Yeah, yeah,
it's
Richard.
Richard. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, I kept wanting to call him Lewis, but that was his friend who was leaving that day. I don't know why I
Yeah.
remember like he was moving back to Spade, and in my head I'm
Right.
calling him Lewis instead of Richard. I don't know.
Yep.
Whatever.
No,
Sorry,
Richard from
sorry,
over at
Richard.
Old World. Yep.
But you could just simply have that same restriction where, as I like to call it, first one's free, and then the second Shatterpoint card has to be the other squad. Like you could still do a fun event where you essentially have those same rules, because this was another idea I was thinking of that kind of it's kind of like a combination of like Thrawn's battle tactics and um Sabotage Showdown's rules. I thought it might be cool to also test an event where, like, say, when your Shatterpoint card came up, you could spend a force to get like a powerful effect, like one of these 4 or 5 options. Like, and
Mhm.
it could be something crazy like a reposition, or like heal 3 times, or like just come up with these ideas that essentially it would be like on activate, like you reveal your Shatterpoint card, you decide who you're going with it, and then you essentially have this list of abilities, and like maybe you can't repeat them over the course of a game, like to make things extra interesting. Like so like maybe it's one of 3 options, just because three shuggles, Shatterpoint card, or maybe you need to have 4 or 5 options for the people who go real fast. I don't know, or get stuck in struggle one alternatively. um like you have a list of options and you can only pick one once and throughout the game. Like that was another one I was thinking of that could be fun. I hadn't fleshed out, like I'd want to look at like the Thrawn tactic cards and like the Ewok trap. Like I'm kind of thinking of like just borrowing, because we had talked about like a tips and tricks where you get an extra card in your order deck, and I was like, oh, the logistics of that though, of getting everybody an extra card in the event can be a pain, like
Mhm.
proxies and stuff. So then I was like, well, what if we essentially just took the Ewok trap card, the Thrawn battle tactic cards, and I don't know, one other ability, and then like made a list, and then you could pay a force on your Shatterpoint card. I don't know. What do you think of that variant?
It could work. I mean, like you could like I think one of the variants we were looking at was like instead of adding like just a random, like you could add one of the Thrawn cards and just make it to where anybody could use that Thrawn card, or you could add the Ewoks trap card and anyone could use the Ewoks trap card type of a thing. Like it wasn't restricted to a specific tag or something along those lines. So we were kind of looking at something like that. It's still, the logistics of that is kind of like in practice that we haven't really given it a run. On paper, it seems like it might be something interesting to try, but I don't know. I think like the double Shatterpoint and some of the other ideas that we've kind of like been brainstorming as of late are probably um, a little more in the vein of like what would be best for us to do than what we are than something like this.
Yeah, yeah. And then the Australians, they had an interesting idea even at their GT, like in the middle of their GT, with that whole bingo card. If you listen to Red Mando's episode, you'll have way more details, and there's a picture of it, I think, over in their Discord. But they essentially had a stuff like recreate a thematic moment, and then like Red Mando 1 had Obi-Wan wound Maul and shove him off of a higher elevation onto a lower elevation. Like, yeah, okay, there you go. End of Phantom Menace right there. Like that sounded like a lot of fun.
Right, yeah, they had a really cool one. Like one of them was like, your bingo card. One of the spots was win struggle one, cool, or win a game, lose a game, get your full tree. So there's some really cool stuff. Then there's stuff like roll nothing but fails. So like their card was really cool, and I really liked that idea of having a kind of like something to add to it. I mean, and you could sit there and have like maybe like bingo prizes that you could add on. Like when someone finally completes their bingo card, they bring it up and can choose. Like they get the choice of a certain like small prize pool that you have for just those people. I mean, and it would be that, like something like that would probably be something small, like something like like when you were a kid and went to the arcade and you get the tickets and you go up and get like this really crappy like ring or something for or a racer or something along those lines.
Hey, I love those prizes.
I'm sure you did. What I'm saying, but you know what I'm saying? It's like you could have stuff like that where you get like those little cheapy ones where it's like, because like I said, my kids love it. It's a great idea, but like I mean, like I'm saying, like not something going too wild or something like that. But yeah, you could do something really fun that kind of makes it like more exciting and stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you can sit there and kind of like maybe do some different prizes or something like that for the bingo card idea. But I don't know, did you have other ideas like went along with that?
Yeah, so another thing that we did in again, and this is in Magic, and I don't have a complete idea, so maybe community, you could help me with this. But something we did to try and promote a more friendly experience, because there's a format called Commander that is famously known for having hundreds of broken interactions in it that can end the game on the spot, and everybody is just expected to not always do that to their opponents. And unless your name is Rich, love you, Rich, you know who you are. uh and so Commander, to make it friendlier, we tried to introduce this concept of winning wasn't actually what got you the most quote unquote like points in a round. Like if you eliminated a player, because it's a free for all and usually four players, you would get a point, but you would get more points, and your goal was to rack up as many points in the round as you can. So it didn't necessarily matter who actually won the round. It mattered how many points you got throughout the round. And this is very similar to the bingo card. So I don't know if the bingo card is just the friendlier, more fun version of this. But you could always uh, have stuff like remove a model from the table. That's 10 points. Uh, or uh, wound a character two times, or the same unit two times. You could do little achievements. I don't know, have the momentum struggle land in the middle three times in a game, and like
Mhm.
you both get points. Like it could be very small effects, and then
It
you
can,
add up the
yeah.
points over the event.
So we did something. There's a local in Arizona in the MCP community named Matt Tazi, and he's known for running what he likes to call his crazy mad events. Um,
Yeah, I've heard of
and
those.
and so basically, there's a lot like some times where he would run events, and he would just have a list of like just really unique strategy, like just items. Like if you do this, you get a point. And to go on a slightly strange tangent for the people in the MCP community, there's a guy who went 5-1 at LVO with a very unique list called Sin Cabal, which is widely known as probably one of the worst lists out there. But he had a really good showing, and that list sprouted from one of these crazy mad events where like you had to create like just this really weird event, and like some of that like some of his things would be something like to translate it to the Shatterpoint side. One of your achievements could be force our fifth brother uses force repulse to push two characters, and that's one of your achievements. And you would have achievements like that
Yeah.
that you would set for independent characters, or and things along those lines. Like ARF troopers utilize coordinated fire twice within a given game, or something like along those lines. Or what I'm saying, like there's you could find just these abilities that different characters have, and find way like that just don't happen as frequently, and underutilized characters as well. It's kind of like the biggest thing is like you get more points for using underutilized characters and making them do the cool thing that they could do but they just don't do very often, is really kind of like the key point to like these achievements, at least in the crazy mad idea of it all.
Yeah, no, I like that idea at all. I mean, I think it's a little daunting to come up with an achievement for each individual unit. Like I would be
Yeah.
thinking like push two characters in a single turn. But you could
Mhm.
you could do an event where it is specific character, every character has an achievement. You could do events where you have more generic achievements. Like that's really fun. The other
Mhm.
thing we did, and like famously there was a player in my Magic group in Carson that he got every achievement in the game, including the ones I'm about to describe to you. He built a deck that was geared towards gaining every conceivable achievement in a game. It was
Mhm.
awful. He sat there at the table for 40 minutes while we all stared at him. It was
Yeah.
an awful experience. So please don't do this. But what we had tried to introduce to try and discourage some of the more competitive behavior is there was also negative points. So like I know you play Magic, so you know this. So like eliminating a player before the fourth turn, you would get like minus 100 points. Like it was very punitive to be like, hey, don't be that guy. Yeah, well,
Mhm.
this guy, he got all of the achievements, including the negative ones, and he still beat us because we didn't realize just how insane it was if you got all of the achievements. Whatever. Anyway, but you could even do something like, say, put Aiden on the table, minus 10 points. Put
Right.
Kanan on the table, minus 10 points. And then like see, like we'd have to sit down and figure out like a point breakdown and what do the points mean and yada yada yada. Like it could be just a bonus prize, same as the bingo card, or it could be like, yeah, you might win the round and that's what goes on Longshanks, but you didn't score as many points, so you're still behind in the running or whatever. Like there
Exactly.
could be like two different, essentially it would be like two tournaments. You'd have just the Longshanks tournament of, all right, this is our win-loss record, because that makes sense. But then we would just keep track as like the TO, like, well, who has the most points by the end of the event? Well, okay, I don't care that you're in last place, you did all the cool stuff, so you win this other prize because you got all of the achievements.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, so and things along those lines is it's kind of like, like for example, like one that I would immediately come up with is, playing all Ewoks that don't include Leia Organa Freedom Fighter.
Oh, Care Bear Stare Award right there.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I
Yep.
mean, like then that's kind of what you're looking for in some of these events, at least in my mind, is that you're playing, you're forcing it to be the fun version of the game, not the competitive version of the game, where you're trying to do the silly things, not the I'm going to win at all cost things.
Right. And I get that maybe the con experience just isn't necessarily the best place to force people into too casual of game modes, because if you're traveling for a con, you're probably a little too invested in the competitive side of things. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say too invested. You are invested in the competitive side of things if you're traveling to major events. So, yeah, all right. Maybe it's going to be a little more competitive. But these are also just ways, like we were talking about in the last episode about, like, maybe you didn't get a GT in your region or anywhere close to you. Well, aside from just running a Premier Showdown, Premier Showdown, Premier Showdown, we're gonna get there, you could also sprinkle these things in because they're also nice for more casual players. Like my fiance likes MCP more than Chatterpoint, just full stop, but she will still come out and attend some of the team events or some of the casual events for Shatterpoint because they're more fun and there's less pressure on her, like, she doesn't care about competitive Shatterpoint at all. Sorry guys. But sorry listeners, nope, she does not care about that, but she still likes the game enough that she'll go out to these fun events. So that's another way to build community, is that, I hate to break it to you, we love this game, but other people just kind of want to flitter in and flitter out and do their thing every once in a while, and that's okay. Let's make events for them too.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what, like I said, that's an option that's available for sure. And finishing out everything, looking at like some of the last things that kind of were on our list were like the key operations in Galactic Legends. As of right now, there's nothing for Galactic Legends that's up on the AMG site. That the Galactic Legends, there was the Asajj Ventress one that was up there at some point in time, but if you go on the website now, it's just not there. um and it
What?
might
They
be,
took it down?
yeah, it's not there. I mean, I'm literally just went and looked at it.
No, no,
And
no.
so
I
but
believe you, Todd. I'm just surprised. That's interesting.
yeah,
Maybe they wanted to riff on it somewhere.
yeah, I mean, and that's probably the case, is that they're maybe doing some updates or something like that with it. And trying to sit there and make it improve upon it, because there was like that beta testing, that open beta testing that was going on with it. So maybe that has something to do with it, but there is like still the key operations. I know, again, these are not competitive type of things. These are more in the line of the fun aspect of it. And some people, I think there's people that will lean towards one over the other. I mean, I think the Extract the Agent one seems to be the one that's like the one that has the most the following, I guess, the people that are the most interested in it. I know that's one of those things where Aubrey and I like definitely want to start getting more games in and doing like some of these casual formats, and like maybe running a couple of like filming some of these and stuff like that. And the nice thing is I've actually been talking with one of our local LGSs, the owner of it is of Imperial Outpost, and he's willing to let us use. He has a space dedicated for recording and stuff like that, and he's willing to let us utilize that space. So I'm excited for that. I mean, for us to sit there and maybe kind of showcase that format a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I for one, like I printed. I almost feel bad. Sorry, AMG. I've been busy. Like I'm the only one responsible for this, of course. Uh, and like I've been wanting to test out like the key operations and extract the agent, the jailbreak. Like they seem like really fun game modes, but I haven't had time, and when I have limited time, you kind of just go with the flow of everyone else. And mostly, what everybody
Mm.
wanted was got to get an LVO practice, got to get an Adepticon practice, gotta go. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, we're gonna play more Premier Showdown. That's fine. I certainly don't play enough. It's not like I don't need practice, but I just would like to explore the the more fun side, or at least for me. I get winning is fun for a lot of people. I'm not trying to yuck your yum, but I I like very much enjoy like uh playing both cooperative and competitive games. I know that's weird because I mean I am a recovering competitive Magic player, but I like both. I when I like a game and I like the game system, I want to do all of it. I was crazy as a Magic player. They have different formats. I had multiple decks in multiple formats all over the place. I still have a ton of Commander decks, even though Commander is the format I like so much less than the other formats, and yet I still build a bunch of decks. So I just want to play all of the versions. Okay, Todd, can I play all of
Mhm.
that? I want to do it all
Yeah,
in my
yeah. I
very
mean, the
copious amounts of time.
yeah, I was about to say, like, because you have the time to do all of these things. Like, we barely have time to sit there and record a podcast, much less get you to sit there and play one game a week of Shatterpoint. So yeah, we'll work out that. Like, eventually, you will get the game going.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I really am hoping. I mean, I kind of forgot about Super Bowl because I was like, oh, I should go on the Discord and see if anybody wants to play on Sunday. And then I saw a message from one of our friends about Super Bowl, and I went, oh, that's this weekend. It's Sports Ball Eve. Okay, never
I mean, I'd
mind.
never expect you to remember the Super Bowl. To be fair, I mean, like, it's that's
Hey, Talia forgot what weekend it was the Super Bowl, and she loves football. Like she is all about it, and she forgot too. So I feel better. So there,
sports
neither
wise in
neither.
Arizona, the Super Bowl week. Like, so if you're into sports, like in Arizona, Super Bowl weekend is pretty easy to follow because the Waste Management Open, which is like the largest golf tournament that we get in Arizona, is always the same weekend as the Super Bowl. Always. So it's like whenever there's bad traffic in Scottsdale around the freaking golf course, that's when we're basically going to have the Super Bowl here in Arizona.
That is a
Like, that's
weird
how.
metric by which to measure that. I believe you, but also why?
Well, because I used to
What?
go to that all the time. I used to go to the golf tournament because it's a giant party. Don't get me wrong. Like, it is a
Oh,
huge
okay.
party, and like that's
Nope.
kind of like the thing to do during this time of year. That's what the big party to go to. Um, so it's one of those where you go and party there, like, usually, and it's an all week thing. Like, the tournament itself is Thursday through Sunday, but like there's all sorts of other things that happen throughout the weekend, or
Ah,
throughout the week. So, and there's concerts, like Jelly Roll came and was in concert at the end of like after hours
wait,
concert. I mean,
what?
that's what I'm saying. It's not a small thing. It's like there's a big
Okay.
concerts at
Okay. I believe you.
so yeah, it's a big thing.
Reminder. Those of you who are still suffering under the effects of winter, it's already been like like hitting 70s and 80s here in Phoenix. Like this is when you do
Yeah.
your outdoor events like Ren Fair just happened, and somebody was telling me about there's like some sort of Japanese festival that I was thinking about maybe
Mhm.
checking out, but then I realized I don't really have time for that. But like that's happening right now. So like this is when all of the outdoor events that you're used to seeing in like early summer, they happen right now in Phoenix. That I guess I shouldn't be that surprised that there's a giant party happening in February in Scottsdale, because yeah,
Yep.
that tracks, because next, like,
Mhm.
it could be next month and we're already hitting hot weather. Like, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, I was at my daughter's track meet yesterday, and it was ridiculous. It was like overwhelmingly hot, especially for the kids that are on the track warming up. It is like 85
Running,
degrees,
yeah,
and like there's
running,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So no, but yeah, I mean, so like as far as like all of the side events and everything like that, and different non-premiere events, I think this is like a kind of a good rundown of like what to do, and like hopefully that gives somebody some ideas on like how to help maybe break some of the staleness within your community. If people are like, I'm just so sick of playing Premier Showdowns, maybe this gives you an idea of like how you might be able to shake up your scene to sit there and make it a little bit more fun for the people that are getting a little like, okay, like we're doing these same formats all the time and we're just playing the same, someone's playing the same medalist all the time. How can I sit there and maybe do something a little different? And that's kind of what we're like, I think we were kind of leaning towards is what can you do for side events, or what can you do to sit there and kind of shake up the, your gaming version of this game.
Yeah, and this is maybe too much for community, because like even here in Phoenix, we have a very good Shatterpoint community, and maybe you don't have enough people for this, but like my last thought is this kind of reminds me of what we often do at the library for after school programs for kids or weekend programs for families. What we try to do is we have a weekly meetup, and it's at the same time and day, but the theme changes from week to week. So, like, you might have arts and crafts be one week. You may have board games be a theme. You may have Steam be a theme. And so, even though the meetup and the time of day is the same every single week to do continuity, and to get people used to, hey, there's something for families on Saturday afternoons at the library. uh, the the idea could translate into Shatterpoint, where maybe you don't have enough players to do like a premiere showdown every week because we're all adults with jobs and it's hard to do. But if you had, say, a weekly meetup for Shatterpoint, even if it's just casual, even if it's just 3 or 4 players, maybe you introduce this idea of, well, hey, well, this week let's do key operations instead. Next week we can practice our premiere lists, and just go from there. And that just kind of depends on how formal or informal your meetups are. I get it. Like if it's just you and your buddy going to the shop, you're probably just going to play a couple of squads into each other. But my challenge to you is try a different game mode, even if it's just the two of you. Try something else. You could even just try throwing in an extra Shatterpoint card and giving yourself that restriction of the 2 squads in a for fun game, and see how it plays out. I would love to get feedback from the community about these other game modes, just because I think there's a lot of opportunity. Like we have barely scratched the surface of what we can do in Shatterpoint, and it feels like we have so much already, and yet there's even more. So like especially if you're struggling to grow your community, these fun events are the kind of things that will attract newer players. They don't want to jump in with four squads and list chicken and top 8 cuts and strength of schedule and victory points. Is that what it is?
Yes,
No.
that's what it is. It's
Yes,
victory
victory point.
points.
What? Well, it's just the name. I know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to remember the name, right? Look, their eyes have already glazed over. They have no idea what you're talking about. Literally we're having to help people sign up for Longshanks, like still recently. Like they've never have interacted with Longshanks, and they're jumping into like a premiere showdown, and you're like, all right, here we go, have fun. So. I know I keep beating this to death, but if you want to grow a community, you gotta make it fun first before you make it challenging. How about that?
That works. That's a good place to close out on it. But so yeah, I mean, but yeah, I think that kind of like sums up everything that we were wanting to talk about. Just to kind of close out, as always, I want to thank each and every one of our listeners. We do appreciate all of you. If you do want to support the channel, you can always do so by becoming a patron. I do want to take this time to shout out like the 3 newest patrons that we had since LVO. Mike Mountain definitely became a patron. Nick and Anthony definitely jumping in there and becoming patrons. We appreciate the support that you guys are giving us and helping us. Like I said, this is really helping us getting us over to Adepticon and doing the live stream and everything along those lines. But it also helps us just on a daily basis, kind of getting all of the run all the services that we use to sit there and do editing and recording and everything like that, and getting the podcast out. It definitely helps with making sure that we're able to do all of that. So again, do want to thank each and every one of our patrons for all of the support that you give us. If you do not want to become a patron but do want to support us, you can always rate, review the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, or if you're watching us on YouTube. And I have been really good about getting this up on YouTube lately. If you want, if you're watching us on YouTube, definitely give us a like, a comment, and kind of just let us know what you're thinking about the episodes and everything along those lines. So we do appreciate any kind of support that you can give us. But other than that, as always, I do want to thank each and every one of you again for just being here and hanging out with us. But as always, may the force be with you.